until that point, we'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, I actually want to talk. This is a big day. In other words, you have Wolfman coming out today. Is that when a movie like that opens? Is that something you're conscious of in the opening? Are you following it as much, or is that behind you now? You're onto your 10 other projects you have to deal with today.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I'm aware of anything I worked on opening, and I'm always, at least 99% of the time, wishing it well and kind of keeping my fingers crossed for the filmmakers, because, you know, almost every time develop a relationship, and I'm rooting, you know, so I'm more like I'm back rooting from the sidelines, you know? So it's more like a team thing. It's like your team's coming to town, and, you know, you're just kind of rooting for them.
Right. But any given, you probably have this throughout the year. You have films opening while you're immersed in something brand new that you probably just read about and something else you're finishing. And do you let your kind of heart kind of fall in one place with one or the other? And like this season with Alice opening up in 2 weeks, and you have Wolfman now, and you probably, like you mentioned, Houdini and everything else like that. And how do you keep track of it all in terms of charts or?
I don't really keep track of charts or anything, you know. If something, that's not necessarily true. On occasions, sometimes I do a small movie, and or I have bonuses, you know, and if the movie's doing well, I'm going, oh my God, I might actually get a bonus if it gets to this or this place. And then I'll suddenly start like going on and like looking at the charts, you know, just it becomes like watching a stock market, you know, like when you have a stock and you're kind of biting your nails.
Right.
You know, there's that little bit of kind of fun craziness, and oh my God, it just fell that much short. If it had only earned, you know, a few more tickets, oh well, that's the way it goes. You know, it is like the stocks. And but usually I'm just, like I said, I'm not really following it that closely, but I'm wishing it well, and I get reports, you know, if something did really well, somebody will tell me, and I'll feel really happy for the filmmaker, because, like I said, there's very, very few films I've come out of where I didn't wish the filmmaker like the absolute most luck. You know, so much sweat, blood. It's just such a hard business making a film and getting it done that, and you know, I come cruise in and out. I might be 3 months, and the director and others have been on for a year to 2 years sometimes, and so you just can't help but, you know, wish them the best.
Was it the same with this one, or was it different with this one? When did you first hear about this project from Tim? When did you know? When were the first kind of germinations of Alice and your first conversations?
Yeah, Alice was a really long one because it's motion capture. I've been on it for over a year, although I haven't been working on it for a year. But it was, oh my God, it must have been last July or August when Tim came out here, and I met with him, and he was saying, well, it's going to be a real close uphill battle getting this one done, and it's going to get real crazy at the end. So prepare yourself. And I did, and it was. So it was exactly as he thought it would be. He knew that it was going to be like really getting all the shots that needed to be done in the amount of time there was going to be something of a small miracle. But in movies, you know, small miracles do happen, and it did. But it was really right up to the last second. I wrote my last cue for Alice a week ago Sunday. It was mixed into the film Sunday night and print mastered Monday for a premiere that I'm going to be at in less than 2 weeks. That's pretty intense. So it was a wild ride and an intense ride, but I was prepared for that and expected nothing less.
Is it that much more satisfying than when the final cue hits, that feeling of completion and this works?
Well, in the sense that you feel like you've just come out of like one of these, you know, races where people win by hundredths of a second. You know, I was just watching I have a 5-year-old who still likes watching last year's Summer Olympics. We were watching Usain Bolt win his sprint, and you see that the first, second, and third places are all within hundredths of seconds. And so sometimes a movie can feel like you're really just making it like that. You're just slipping under the wire and just making it. And it does get more adrenaline for sure.
How much of that do you thrive on? How much of it do you honestly can do without? You don't need that experience to be that crazy. But how much of that do you actually enjoy at a certain point?
Well, no, I mean, I don't know if anybody really enjoys just barely, that feeling of, oh my God, we're not going to make it. We made it. You like to have enough time to go, it's tight, but it's totally doable. And so I think only like a crazy person really thrives on that level of intensity. On the other hand, that being said, if I never had a deadline, I'd still be working on Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So I do need the deadlines, and I could say that I must thrive on deadlines, and I work well under pressure. But there's levels of pressure, and I don't know if anybody likes it when it's up to 10, as opposed to at a nice, sensible 7.5.
But Tim obviously knows and trusts that you're going to make that deadline, else you guys wouldn't be working together this long.
Oh yeah. There's never a doubt in my mind that I wouldn't make it, that I wouldn't deliver the score. But it's just knowing that you're going to be, up against the kind of madness at the end. It's going to be like a madhouse. And now sometimes that madhouse can be like really bitter and awful, with like all kinds of fights and battles going on. And this wasn't at all like that. This was kind of like the happy madhouse. Everybody was liking what they were doing. Everything was looking great. It was just intense getting it done. So there's different kinds of madhouses. This was kind of the up-tempo madhouse where all the crazy people are really still pretty happy with the way things are going. And I've been on films where it's quite the other way around, where producers and directors and studios are at intense odds with each other, and you really feel like you have to have your flak vest on when you show up at the studio in the morning. That there's going to be a lot of shrapnel flying, and you just hope not to get hit.
Right.
And Alice was definitely not like that. There was always a feeling of, oh man, this stuff is looking so good, and it's nice when if you are under pressure, when there's not that kind of battle going on. It definitely makes it more of a thrill ride. So.
Speaking of madness, talk about what appealed to you in bringing this to life in your first conversations with Tim, and what you were going for with your themes and with the heart of the story for you.
I never know how to answer that. I mean, I just begin with lots of stuff, lots of ideas. Tim and I rarely talk about the film much at all. He's never been that way, and I actually appreciate it, because the fact of the matter is you can talk till you're blue in the face about what you're going to do, and a director can talk about what he wants to hear. It has nothing to do with what you're going to do and how he's going to hear what he's going to hear, because there's no way to describe music, and there's no way to describe what kind of music you may want, and there's no way to really know what they're hearing in their head. So the way Tim and I work is really pretty ideal. Very little talk, all do. I get out there and I just dive in, and I'll try lots of ideas, and when I get an idea I like, I complete it as a finished, what you would call a demo, meaning all the parts are there, and he could really imagine exactly what the orchestra is going to sound like. And when I get really happy with something, I abandon it, and I'll try it again from a completely different perspective. And so in the beginning, I like to play him 3, 4 approaches to the same scene, to the same idea. And that way I can kind of hone in on what's working, what's not working for him. And so there's a lot of laboratory work, experimentation. And that's really one of the more fun parts of it, too. It's like you get something, oh, that's good. All right, now ignore it. Try it again. Try it from a completely different angle. See what happens. Because it's really interesting what totally different pieces of music will do to the same scene.
And you surprise yourself when that happens?
Oh, constantly. I mean, not meaning like, oh, I'm surprised what a wonderful thing I did. I'm just surprised by, I didn't think that would, I took something from somewhere else and moved it to this place just as an experiment, and how odd, it really makes it feel so different. And it is always surprising how the same thing can feel very different with 2 or 3 or 4 different pieces of music behind it. But which is not to say that I'm delighted, like, oh, look how wonderful I am, because I never really know at the moment when I'm working whether I've actually, I know that I may have done something, oh, this is interesting, but I don't know if it's good.
When does that moment come?
When it's all done, later, in about 6 months from now.
Let me give you the first DVD copy.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about the moment when you're in there with the orchestra, though, for the first time, and they're playing something you've been laboring over for a long time, and you've reached a certain point where this is working and it's great. What's that like for you? When it's in your ear?
That's just very intense. Like it really was only the first couple of films where it's like, oh wow, there's an orchestra playing my music. How cool! I mean, Pee-wee's Big Adventure was like that already by, second year, fifth film. Okay, I'm over that now. Now it's all work.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I get in front of the orchestra, I've got 80, 90 minutes of music that I have to get done, and I just have to be incredibly focused. I know what it's supposed to sound like, and I know at the first performance it's not going to sound that way. And I have to really be able to hone in. It's a real weird state, because I come out of a day of recording orchestra. I performed on stage with my band for almost 17 years. Mm-hmm. And we used to do 2.5-hour shows, especially towards the end when our repertory got huge after, many albums. And it was incredibly exhausting. I would lose over 1 pound of sweat between going before and after a show. And still, I'm more tired coming out of an orchestral session than that. And it's weird, because I'm not doing anything but sitting in a chair, mm-hmm. looking at a screen, looking at music, and trying to concentrate really, really hard. So it is amazing how, with absolutely no muscle movement whatsoever and no sweat, I can come out of it. I used to say years ago, I'd come back from a session, and maybe I'd meet a friend for a drink or something, and they'd go, man, you look like, I go, yeah, I look like I just did a couple rounds with Tyson, didn't I? That's what I feel like, meaning Mike Tyson, chasing me around the ring, trying not to get killed. It's like nothing else I could have imagined, anything being so intense and concentrated with all just mental energy mm-hmm. at stake. I imagine it's something but an air traffic controller or something must go through, something like that, mm-hmm. where there's just really, really intense focus and concentration, enough to make you feel totally thrashed, and you realize all you did is like maybe work some controls and you didn't actually do anything. So mm-hmm. the orchestra sessions are very unique. I meet people during the scoring that I meet later, and they'll remember having met me, and I'll have no recollection of having met them. I'm in another world. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. Where does that other world take you when you leave that building, when you're home at night and you're trying to put the head down on that pillow? What's going on in there?
At that point, it's just give me a cocktail and a rerun of Lost, on the TV or something. It's like I just want I want out. Mm-hmm. I want the melodies out of my head, because now I've got like kind of stuff repeating and the stress of the day. So I just want the most diverting thing that I could possibly find for the end of that day. And, Turner Classic Movies, is frequently played after sessions late at night. It's like, give me Humphrey Bogart, give me just something that's totally taken me out of it, and that's where I'm at. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. The world of Alice has been through many incarnations before. Even going back, I'm sure you're familiar with the early Disney shorts, and that was different, but Disney's first thing back in the 20s with Alice and her little Wonderland short and stuff like that. Talk about just being part of that lineage now of Disney Alice's. How much of that do you pay attention to or ever have in the back of your mind?
I really tried to keep it out of my mind, because it is such a lineage. It's such a huge critical thing that if you start taking that too much to heart, it'll just bog you down. First off, Tim told me right from the very get-go that this is not the book. This is a reinvention, and it's almost like a sequel. Now, I didn't know exactly what he meant until I saw it, but I knew that this is not going to be another version of Alice, as told again. First off, to do that properly, you'd really need probably, I would say, 6 to 10 part miniseries. Mm-hmm. 10 hours, give yourself 10 hours. You really do Alice Through the Looking Glass, true to the book. This is a different process altogether. So, on the other hand, it was very exciting to be working with images every now and then that would tap into my childhood. Tim was working at the original house of Arthur Rackham, who did illustrations for Alice. Mm-hmm. It's in London, and so I would be at the Rackham house looking at the illustrations early on, even before they started shooting, and feel the sense of, oh my God, this is going to be so cool. But I try to always temper that with, take it for what it is. Don't have expectations of what you think it's going to be. Mm-hmm. I purposely did not go back and read the book a bunch of times, because I knew that would send me actually in a different direction. So I try to take an attitude when I see a rough cut, first time seeing a film, of it being totally blank, having no expectations, having done absolutely no research, and every note I've written in the past from the script and from the original research I've done that I thought would be really helpful taking into that first screening, not one note has ever been used. So now I take the opposite approach. I try to go in a completely blank slate, and I did with Alice. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing on Alice is that I've been there for every one of Tim's movies. I've been there at some point that I've worked on in the middle. He brings me in the middle, let me see the set, let me see some rough footage, just a few scenes, send me back. It usually works well. I mean, that's how I actually wrote the theme for Batman on a plane coming home from London after spending 2 days on the Gotham City set. Mm-hmm. It was enough for me to really soak in. I understand what this is about. I saw 2-3 scenes, saw the set, watched them shooting, and here he warned me, says, this is going to be different. I went onto the set where they're shooting, and there's just a huge green screen, and poor Mia dangling from some harness, and I go, all right, I get it. This is not going to be what I'm used to.
But that must be fun for you. Then it's a whole, in the sense of green canvas, then a view of blankness that you can...
It was, yeah, I got nothing from visiting the set. And Tim was laughing because, he says, I'm warning you. He's like, you're not going to see a thing. It's all coming in. Only Mia. That's all you're going to see. That's all there was. Mm-hmm. And so unlike what I'm used to, there was not that early kind of bit of kind of getting in under the skin of the project at that midway point.
Mm-hmm. It must be fun, though. How great is it for you, though, to be part of something in some ways is totally new? Because you've done so many different types of movies and so many different types of projects over the years. And this is something new in some ways.
Oh, this is completely new.
Yeah. Totally new.
The pleasure of it is I'd get new footage of the film twice a week to work with. And this is over like 3.5 months or something. And what was really delightful is that, especially with Tim's movies, everything's in camera. And there might be a little bit of enhancement or a bit of a background or something that changes between what I start with and what I end with. And I worked on a lot of big films with effects, Spider-Man and whatnot, where, okay, I understand the sequence is unfinished, it's partially done, but the rest of the movie's there. Here, I'm starting out with this, it's not a movie yet. And every time I'd get new film, I'd see, oh, there's the background, part of the background. Oh, look, there's that's filled in over there. Now the March hare is suddenly alive, but this part of the background is still just rendered two-dimensional. It's not there. And then suddenly, oh, there's a castle there. Oh, look, there's trees. The next, there's leaves falling. Every time I would see it, there'd be a new element, and that was really fun, because it's like never knowing what to expect when I would start the new version of the video. Every time I'd go scene to scene, there's some new kind of delightful thing that wasn't there a week earlier.
Mm-hmm. Talk about watching Johnny's performance. You've worked with him now a number of times. What's it like seeing him bring this character to life for you the first time you saw his work?
I knew that Johnny was going to have fun with this, and he did. So, I mean, I think this is just the kind of thing that he does really well, and it looks like he's having a good time with it. Mm-hmm. Now, I haven't asked him whether he really did, but he appears to, and I'm sure he did.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is there any actual performance from you on this? I know you performed on certain soundtracks, be it vocal work or percussion or anything you do on this that we hear on the soundtrack.
Very little on this one. There's no vocals, certainly. I mean, but I usually don't have vocals in my soundtracks. Mm-hmm. To be fair, I mean, that's only been like 3 or 4 out of about 65, and but my percussion and stuff, a little bit. Some films more than others. There's a lot less synthesizers and percussion on this score than others. This is more purely orchestral, mm-hmm. and so here and there you'll hear sounds of this or that, or drums or things, or bits of atmospheric things that are coming from me. Mm-hmm. But I would say it's about 90% really orchestra and voices. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Not that you need the work or have the time or have the energy with all this stuff. Do you ever miss the performance? Is there a certain part of you, the performance thing, that still lingers in there for the audience that you kind of ever think about?
No. Well, yeah, if I think about it, I think, what a relief. I don't have to get in front of an audience. I always, even after decades of being in front of audiences, I was always stricken with a certain amount of unease, stage fright, I guess you'd call it. and which I'd always work through every time. But finally, when I stopped performing, I mean, I love getting in the studio in front of a microphone or in front of my own microphones. But in terms of getting up in front of an audience, it was always a pressure. And this moment just before going out in front of an audience where I felt doomed. So I don't miss not feeling that feeling. There are moments where I go, oh, you know, what I really think really fondly on some of the performances and some of the times performing. But I don't feel like I want to do it now, but I look back and think, oh, that was a great night at the Whiskey A Go Go, and it was all packed, and it was as hot as a steam house, you know, and I was just pouring sweat over my guitar, but the connection with the audience was so great, and that was a great night. So I look back upon it going, that was a great night. But I don't sit there going, I want to do that again. I need to do that again. I've never, I know this sounds really weird, but I've always been uncomfortable with applause, and I've always been uncomfortable with taking bows, and I've never liked compliments particularly. So whatever the antithesis of needing love, you know, live love from an audience that, you know, where you could see a performer is just soaking it up like they really need that. I'm the opposite of that. I would love it right up till the moment of the last tune, but when it came to the bows and the applause and that stuff, I was always really squirming. I wanted to hide. If I could have, I would have disappeared. The last number, have never come out again, but that would be disrespectful to the audience, so I had to. But it was really like dragging me out there and putting me up there. So I don't need the love. You know, does that make any sense?
Sure.
And I'm not saying I don't appreciate the love, but I don't thrive on needing attention. I'm happiest creating stuff and having it out there. And I'm really happy when an audience finds it, but I don't need to get out there and say, put me in a spotlight and love me, because that always made me feel like a mole dragged out of its hole and stuck in a bright light. Even after decades of doing it, at the end, in front of that spotlight, I always had that feeling of the mole dragged out of its burrow and like shine the light on him, and the mole is just like, don't eat me, don't eat me. And that's kind of psychologically where I would be at that point.
Well, hopefully you found your place now. You seem comfortable, and you're certainly thriving.
I love creating, and I love creating for audience, but I guess I'm just the kind of person that's happier not being in the spotlight. I don't even like premieres when I can get out of it. I don't like being in front of spotlights or cameras. I mean, I'm saying that in front of a spotlight, talking to you right now. It's part of my life, but I've never been happy in a spotlight.
But I remember being at your house once and seeing some instruments back in your backyard, and we're talking about your son. He was floating around with some instruments. Is that at home for fun? Is it fun? Do you sing? Are you playing instruments all the time? Is there that level? Do you let yourself do that?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I'm playing all the time. I play on scores. I play on different things. You know, so I still get to play a lot. I have a room full of marimbas and percussion instruments that are all around the world, and I love playing this stuff. So I love getting my hands on instruments still very much. And every Sunday, I play drums with my brother and my family for my starting at 3, now then 4, now just turned 5. He still does kind of wild performances for the family every Sunday, and he tells me it's time to play. You know, he walks out where we're having our dinner and he hands me mallets and goes, or sticks, he says it's time to play.
That's great.
So yeah, I still do play, and I still love playing, and still I would say percussion is my closest to my heart in terms of what I love to play. So I mean, that'll do until I get too feeble to hold sticks. But I love banging on shit. Excuse me. I love banging on stuff.
You mentioned disappearing, which reminded me of the Houdini thing. What can you tell us about that? 'Cause that's an exciting thing going on.
Houdini, it's like I don't know. You know, it's a whole new thing for me. Developing a musical from the ground up. I have no idea. It's just it's interesting and it's fun and it's new. It's different for me. Will it ever see the light of day? I hope so. I mean, Hugh Jackman is involved with it and working with some very good people. The director who's attached and the producers, all great people. It's a great experience. But I'm just watching and learning. This is how it works, creating a show. And on also with Cirque du Soleil, it's creating something from the ground up with a very talented French choreographer, director, and whose work I admired actually before I got involved with him in this show. So this is a case of like somebody whose work I admired, and I get to collaborate with them, and I hope it comes out well, but who knows?
Mm-hmm. Great stuff, though.
Thanks.